Hey everybody, just wanted to welcome everybody to our third video in our strengthening ourselves up around the EOS tools. And today we're going to be talking about the issue solving track, which is going to incorporate a little bit of the issues list. It's going to incorporate IDSing and the L10 meeting. So let's go ahead and get into it. The place we're going to start is this quote: time isn't the main thing, it's the only thing. And the reason why this becomes a big deal is as managers, our job is to manage resources. And one of the most precious resources that we've got to manage is time. This is the thing that we want to focus on, and we're going to keep coming back to. So when we want to get great at dealing with issues in IDSing, the starting point that we have to start with is understanding two concepts, really making sure we're clear on scorecards and clear on rocks. And so when we start with the scorecard, we got a little picture here of these guys are making roads. And this is the day-to-day job that we might have to do, whatever it might be, whether it's manufacturing or software development or healthcare or retail or making roads. The scorecard is tracking how well we're doing on a weekly basis, how well we are actually operating. It allows us to see performance. So we might produce 50 widgets. We might have sold $22 million. We might have increased cash by $72,000. Whatever it is that we're doing, it allows us to see how we performed week in and week out. And the nice thing too with the scorecard is as we get better at it, it allows us to predict pretty capably as well. So when we talk about the scorecard, this is all about the operational performance week in and week out. This is determines the success of how our business is performing. Now, the second piece are rocks, and rocks are kind of operate a little bit parallel to what the day-to-day is. Now, when we look at rocks, we know we want to be 10 years out. We know to get there, we got to be here in 3 years, and we have to be here in a year. And these are the things we got to get done this quarter that's going to drive us there. And a lot of times rocks are outside of the day-to-day work. So for some examples here, manufacturers need new machines, better workflows. And so day to day, we're going to basically make sure that those machines are running full time and that our people are basically making those machines work at the best they can. But we got to go find new machines because we got to figure out better floor layouts and better workflows to be able to deliver more all the time. If I'm a CPA, we're going to be doing all the tax returns and our auditing, but we need to also have time to carve out to understand the latest laws and latest software. Retailers, similar type of situation, they need to know the latest marketing techniques and the products to sell, not just the actual selling of products. So when we put these two things together, because if scorecards are the building of the roads, rocks are thinking about where those roads are going to be placed. The two go hand in hand. And one of the questions that you hear quite a bit, particularly with people when they're first getting started, is, wait, what do you want me to work on, my rocks or my scorecard? What's more important? And the answer is they both are. And ideally, we're predicting, saying we're going to deliver this type of performance on our scorecard, and we have enough capacity to work on these goals as well. That's what we really want to do. Scorecard is making sure my performance day to day is happening. Rocks is making sure that my long-term vision is going to become a reality. If we did a bad job and we predicted poorly and we don't have enough capacity to take care of our scorecard or our rocks, what should I work on? Well, that's really depends. It's very situational. If I focus more on my rocks, I'm going to make sure that the day-to-day is working good. That treadmill is going to be going nice and fast, but I'm not getting the long-term stuff done. So I know that I'm going to basically run out of steam at some point. Similarly, if I focus all my time on the rocks, I'm putting my infrastructure in place. So I'm going to be better set for the long term, but I may be actually sacrificing too much in the short term. So I've got to figure out what that balance should be. And if I don't have enough capacity, I want to choose what's going to give, rocks or scorecard. And most of the time when we look at these things, we got to bring these decisions to the L10 because they have big implications. If we're not going to get our goals done, that could affect the whole organization. And if we're going to underperform, that could affect the whole organization. So this is why when these things go red, we want to talk about these things in the L10 meeting. And the L10 meeting is our environment to basically make sure that we are on track with our rocks and our scorecards. It's the environment that allows us to say that if we're going to be off track, I don't want to catch everybody else by surprise. This is we've got a problem here, and it really allows for people to help contribute. And I just got this fire danger picture here, because if everybody understands that we're in extreme danger, we're going to operate differently than when we don't think we're in extreme danger. So this is why that L10 really has got to allow for us to discuss these things. So when we start to get into this L10, one of the things that we want to treat as a priority, if you're running the L10 meeting, you want a great issues list. And the place that you start is your scorecard. If I have red items on my scorecard, I have already determined that my company or my department or my organization is really tied up with this scorecard. It's a very meaningful scorecard of what determines success or failure for my organization. So if something's red, I want to drop that down to my issues list so that we are going to talk about it. It is urgent. Similarly, if my rocks are not getting done, if people are not getting some of the longer term things that they need to get done completed, we've got to basically drop that down on my issues list. Another one, we don't talk about this one quite as much, but if the to-dos are not getting done, the team needs to talk about it. We got to figure out, why are we not doing what we said we're going to go do? We're dependent on you. You're killing our reliability. We got to bring it to the issues list. So before we even start to ask anybody if they have any issues to add, we should be looking at our scorecard and our rocks and our to-do list as the first place to start to create a great issues list. And so this is the whole purpose. We look at our scorecard, our rocks, and then we get to our issues. This is why this meeting is structured the way it is. Now, I'll tell you, I use this analogy because, and the language I use is, don't get used to seeing red. There's so many times I'll watch and observe L10 meetings and see that people say, okay, yeah, we're red on this one, red on this one, red on this one. I look across and they've been red for all 13 weeks. And they're kind of moving on. It's like, okay, we know it's red. Got it. Yep. And this is where I would say you've gotten used to red. It's something you got to get out of your head. And what I use the soccer analogy to kind of help illustrate. Imagine you're a soccer team and you're trying to win. Because if our stuff is red and the scorecards and rocks, we're not winning. And let's say we lose the game 9-1, and then our team regroups. So to me, week 1 performance, lost 9-1. Great. Our team gets together. We say, okay, we got to do something differently. We got to fix this. We don't want to be in the red anymore. And we start to change things up, come up with new ideas, got the new plan that we're going to go use. And so everybody's excited about it. They rate that meeting a 10. Great L10 meeting. We got a new plan that we're going to go. And the team goes back out, and for the second week in a row, they lose 10-1. They're red again. All right, that's frustrating. You just did all this work to try to figure out how to fix it, and you go and you meet. And you say, okay, we should do things differently. We tried this and this, and that didn't work. We should do this. And it should be a higher degree of intensity. So you go, great, week 3, we've got this, man. We have been on it. We're on. And you go out in week 3 and you lose again 9-1. 3 weeks in a row, red. 3 weeks in a row, not getting what we're supposed to get done. The most important things, in this case, the winning or losing of a game, but on your scorecard, you're having red metrics on some of the most important metrics of your entire business or department or organization. The next meeting should be intense. It should be a bit frustrated. It should be people going, what is going on? We probably have to get this. And that's usually where I also pay attention, that if everybody's rating the meeting a 10 and we got red scorecard items and red rocks, we are not pushing ourselves well enough. We're getting used to the red and going, okay, that's understandable. Yep, that's understandable. Do not get used to red. All right. So we're going to create a great issues list by having a great scorecard. We're going to have create a great issues list by identifying rocks that are off track. We're going to have a great issues list by looking at to-dos that don't get done. And then we're going to go around the room and say, okay, any issues to add, and the serious stuff should be added to that list as well. And when we look at the top 3 issues that we should be talking about, this should not lead to boring meetings or quiet meetings. This should be intense and driven to basically make these things green again. Now, once we get done with our creating a really strong issues list, this is the setup to be able to have really good solving of these issues. And the way that we're going to do this is this concept of IDSing. We're going to identify, we're going to discuss, and we're going to solve. Now, these are 3 stages that we talk about on how to fix an issue. And the thing I really want to kind of get your head into place with this is, these are 3 very different stages in trying to solve an issue. So don't glom them all together or say, yeah, that's logical 3 things that we do. Each one is its own kind of discrete element. We want to think about those differently. So the way that we start is we go through and say, okay, what are the top 3 issues that we should tackle? Stage, and after you discuss it, get to a solve. And my rule of thumb is any issue that gets brought up should be getting to a solve. You should not be leaving the room in the discuss phase. Once you clear the first issue, go to the second issue, clear the second issue, same thing with the third. And then just to be clear, once you get through the third, if you still have time, do the same thing, next 3 issues and go all the way through. If you can clear the issues list, great. All right, we're treating these things as 3 disparate sets. We want to be deliberate as we're switching from one stage to the next. Each step is a different type of thinking, and it takes practice. IDSing takes time to get good at. Shouldn't take forever. By 3-4 meetings, I'm expecting that you're starting to click. Well, I love that Albert Einstein says this because I feel like I've said that not knowing this for a lot of times. But he says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. Yes, the trick to IDSing is on the I part of it. It's not on discuss and it's not on solve. It's on the identify part of it. So we want to be relentless with this. And I'll tell you, it's a funny thing. John, can you frame up the issue? And then a lot of times people say, yes, here's my issue. And then they go on for 10 minutes talking about their situation. So you want to drive to a simple question. And the question I like to use is, what is the problem we are trying to solve in a sentence? Give me in a sentence. What is the problem we are trying to solve? And a lot of times the person will go, oh, okay, yeah. And then they go into another 10-minute explanation. And this is where I really want you to not move on, not to be gracious, I want you to be like a dog with a bone. You do not let that thing go. And is what is the problem in a sentence? And a lot of times when I am IDSing, particularly with my clients, I'll actually put down problem and I'll try to write down in a sentence what they're saying on a whiteboard or on a screen so that we're all thinking what the problem is in a sentence. I really want to force this. Do not move on until you have what problem we're trying to solve in a sentence. Do not move on, do not move on, do not move on. It's the key to identifying. Now, before we go into the discuss section of it, the key on this identify piece of it is make sure that you understand it. And sometimes you're going to basically see multiple issues break out. That's okay. Just add the issues to the issues list and just say, okay, which issue are we talking about? And bring it back to this 1-sentence piece. Now, once we're done, once we have identification, we could say, okay, let's discuss it. Does everybody understand the issue? And then that's going to lead to the discussion piece of it. And the key to this part of it, the discuss piece, is the preventing the excessive discussion. There's always somebody who's going to say, okay, yeah, I know what's going on. And then they go on and on and on. A lot of times I was that guy too. And so if you're running the meeting, you got to say, Rick, I think we understand the point. Hey, Rick, I'm sorry, we need this to go a little faster. Can we get to it? Rick, hey, I need to cut you off for time reasons. I'm really, really sorry. If you're hearing people repeat themselves, we consider that politicking. It's not good. Maintain a spirit of impatience on the discuss portion. Let people kind of say, all right, we got a problem here. Okay, I think this, I think that, I think this. You got to watch out for this, because let some of that conversation go. But man, 5-10 minutes, really 10 minutes tops. Allow people to get those different point of view. We want to see all sides of the problem. We don't need to basically hear it 22 times over. And then we're going to get to the solve. And this is where I would say that third stage, we want to be explicit with it. We need a solve, or what is our solution? And the reason why this is such a big deal is because when you do this, you can see people switch in their mindset. So when we're discussing, it's like, hey, we got to watch out for that. We got to think about that. That's complicated too. And oh yeah, this is an issue. When you say, okay, we need to solve, that's when a person goes, okay, what should we do about it? This is what I think we should do. This is what I propose. This is what, and that's where we want to kind of drive that separation. We tend to treat discuss and solve a lot of times as the same thing. They're not. Make it a hard switch. Okay, let's get some proposals. What's our solution? And 90% of the time, whatever the solution is, it's going to involve an action item. So we're going to say, okay, what are the to-dos? What are we trying to take out of this? So we had the issue, understood it, we then discuss it, and now we're going to wrap it up. Okay, here's what we think we should do. We take those to-dos, we record those to-dos, and make sure that they get done in the next week. And to be clear about this, a lot of times when we are solving a problem, when we say solved, you'll sometimes feel people say, I don't know if it's solved. Like, I don't know if that solution is going to work. When we basically say solve, we're basically saying we think this is the right set of things that's going to fix that problem. And we think that, so we're going to close out the issue. We're going to say it's solved. And then if the work, the to-dos that we take on do not fix the problem, then we just raise the issue again. But when we basically say, okay, we think we're solved, we basically say, okay, I like the solutions that we came up with, let's take it off. We don't basically say, oh, these are the actions we're going to do, and we're going to keep the issues on the list to make sure it's right. Nope. We basically identify the action we're going to do and then kill the issue. Now, there are two primary reasons why IDSing gets stuck. The first one is that the issue is huge. It's a big manga issue, and we got to break these things down to bite-sized issues. And the trick to it is the thing that I've been relentless on is, what is the problem we're trying to solve in a sentence? So if we can break that stuff down into a single sentence, we're breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. In the process of trying to help the person break that down into a sentence, a lot of times you're going to be going, okay, is that the issue? That sounds like a separate issue. Is that the issue? It sounds like a separate issue. That's fine. Just add those issues to the list and then make sure that we have clarity on what issue we're basically working on, and then we should be able to solve it. If we do a good job in the definition, solving usually is easy because it's usually a bite-sized piece. It's when it's this 6 different issues all combined into one that things get too complicated. So IDSing trick number 1, make sure that you're relentless on identify, break it into bite-sized pieces. The second hang-up that exists is that our fearless leader is not doing their job. Who's the fearless leader? Whoever the leader is in that meeting. So it's the integrator on the company level, and then on each of the department levels is the department leader that's running the meeting. So we're going to have times that we don't achieve consensus. Okay, what do you think? I think A, you think B, you think C, you think A, you think B, and you think D. Huh. And we can talk about it because we want to achieve consensus. We want everybody to like the decisions that we're making. We want everybody to be on the same page. Usually it takes 5-10 minutes to realize we are not going to achieve consensus. And this is where the fearless leader has to say, okay, I think I understand all sides of it. Here's a decision we're going to go with. Boom. Does everybody understand the decision? Let's move on. Don't ask the question, does everybody agree with the decision? Because we already know they don't. So just, do we understand the decision? All right, next issue. And then move forward. How do we know if we're doing this well? Well, I'll tell you, really good indicators. One, if the scorecards are moving to mostly green, then we're doing it right, because we're basically taking all those red scorecard items and we are tackling those things and figuring out how to make those things green again. If we see our rocks are mostly on track, we're doing it right, because when things are coming up, and they always do, we figured out how to get them back on track. When our L10 meetings are consistently being rated a 9 or a 10, then we're doing it right. And the reason is because people feel like it's a good use of their time. And so that's what we're looking for there. If we're clearing out 8 or more issues every week, we're doing pretty well. That's usually what I'm looking for, because if we've got 60 minutes to IDS and we use 7-8 minutes per, that's going to get us 8 or more issues every single week. And the big thing is participants don't want to miss the L10. They feel like it's important and that they want to be part of this. So we know if we're doing it well, we basically are seeing that people want to get to that meeting and they don't want to miss it. And so that's the trick for IDSing. This is what we want to try to make sure that we're going to go do. We're going to basically make sure that we construct really strong issues lists, and then we're going to be really, really good at clearing those issues lists through IDSing by looking at each of those steps in individual pieces. So I hope that all makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm Rick at outpaceenterprises.com. And I would love to talk to you about any of these things. So thank you very much, everybody.